Welcome to the LDN radio show, brought to you by the LDN Research Trust. I'm your host, Linda Elsiegood. I have an exciting lineup of guest speakers who are LDN experts in their field. We will be discussing low-dose Naltrexone and its many uses in autoimmune diseases, cancers, etc. Thank you for joining us. Today we're joined by Mandi from the United States, who takes LDN for the triad, MCAS, POTS and EDS, but also for Thoracic Outlet Syndrome. Thank you for joining us today, Mandi.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
So first of all, could you explain what Thoracic Outlet Syndrome is?
In my case, I have, which all thoracic outlet, there is compression. And it links up to obviously the EDS for me in my situation. And I had compression in my subclavicle region, and it was compressing all of my nerves, all in the brachial plexus area, as well as my subclavicle artery. And it caused a ton of damage to my brachial plexus. And it was just, it's horrible. I'm actually bilateral. I had surgery about a year ago. And in my case, to remove that compression, they took out most of my first rib, my scalenes, and then they did what is called a brachial plexus neurolysis. And they go in and they basically like scrape away all the scar tissue off your nerve bundle to clear it from that compression. It's pretty rough. My brachial plexus was so mangled with scar tissue that my nerves were actually yellow instead of white. It's a rare condition, but there are a lot of people in my TOS group that do have EDS as well. So I think a lot more people have it than they realize, and they're starting to kind of do more research. There's other variants where you can get vein damage or artery damage, and can cause blood clots and all that. So it can kind of snowball, not just permanent nerve damage, but you're at risk of deep vein thrombosis or aneurysms or whatever the case may be.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So how long ago was it when you first noticed there was something wrong with you?
Well, to be fair, I feel like I've always had something wrong with me. There's always some kind of weird pain or, this or that. I had a disc herniation of 21. I ended up having a spinal surgery, a disc replaced, because my disc herniated so bad. And it was mostly my right side that I was having all the problems with. But I went through the surgery and I did tons of physical therapy before and after, and I still had this problem in my arm area right here and in my armpit and my rib cage. Everything just hurt all the time. And they just kept saying, oh, it's just from years of damage. It'll kind of slowly come back. And it didn't. And then it was the previous year. So it was like December of 22, I met with my new neurologist, and she did the physical exam, and she kind of knew where to point and touch and poke, and she knew all the right places to hit that were making me cringe. And she's like, I think you have thoracic outlet syndrome. And it was a big shocker to me because I was like, what? I feel like I've learned so much in the years navigating all these conditions. So it was even a shock to me. What is this condition? And I checked every box. I'm lucky that Illinois has a knowledgeable surgeon, because there are not many in the world. And I saw him and he told me I was a poster child for thoracic outlet syndrome. So it's just been in the last year and a half or so. And I was being a complex case, actually ended up getting surgery pretty quickly after being diagnosed to relieve my compression.
Wow, that's amazing. As a child, did you experience any unusual things? Rashes or hives, diarrhea, sickness?
No. So I definitely exhibited the dysautonomia POTS symptoms as a child, which, I was labeled as anxious and dramatic because I would have syncope, like legitimate syncope episodes as a child that they were like, oh, it's blood pressure, oh, it's blood sugar. And it never was. They were trying different things and nothing worked. So I just became labeled the anxious, dramatic child who would faint. I was always heat intolerant. I'd get really sick in the heat. And again, just dramatic, as they labeled me. But I didn't have the hives or any of those symptoms. I didn't even know anything about mast cell until the last few years when my son came along, and he's a very scary, scary, complex, anaphylactic mast cell kid. And that's what started the journey there. And that's also actually what started the journey into me figuring out that I had all these things that were not normal, so no hives, but I was always injuring myself, always covered in bruises, always rolled ankles, sprained ankles, hurt wrists, you name it.
Wow. So how old is your child now?
Well, I have an almost 10-year-old, very medical one, my middle. He is 7. He just turned 7 in April. And then I have a 4.5-year-old little girl.
Mm-hmm. And is it only your middle son who has issues?
No, my oldest has issues. He was born with hypospadias. He was born with finger contractures that one side actually has had a couple surgeries for. He's had multiple hand surgeries to fix his joints. He has very narrow palate and airway issues that don't fit any normal criteria. I've been advocating for him for years because he doesn't fit the sleep apnea, obstructive sleep apnea box, but he has sleep issues and he doesn't fit this, and this. So, we've been advocating for him. He's finally getting an expansion, and we're trying to figure stuff out because he has that narrow palate, long face, all that typical, like, that poster child EDS look. He does have mast cell as well, but his is more GI presenting. He does do the flushing and the heat issues, but it's hard to tell is that mast cell or is that the dysautonomia? We're not really sure, but he does have a mast cell protocol. My middle is the complex one. He was the idiopathic anaphylaxis, 0 safe foods feeding tube as a child until he was on a solid mast cell regimen. He couldn't tolerate a single thing. We had to completely uproot our lifestyle to help keep him safe. And it wasn't up until the last couple of years that he kind of started to seem a little bit more typical. You would look at him and not know. I've worked very, very hard. My husband and I worked very hard to get him stable with our doctors. But life with him a couple years ago was, we couldn't even think ahead 6 months because he was so symptomatic and scary, hives, swelling, just horrible GI issues, just inconsolable, miserable baby. It was really rough. And my daughter's my only so far healthy one. We did things really different with her in our birth and just, our lifestyle. And we're treating her almost. She doesn't have any of those exposures my other kids had to cause those symptoms. So because of our lifestyle, we think everything is staying calm for her.
It's very scary when you have children who are so sick and you don't know what to do and nothing's really helping. Do you have good functional medicine doctors around you?
We do, luckily. But I know that's not a case for a lot of people. In the journey of helping my son, because, conventional doctors were just very dismissive, or I experienced so much gaslighting in trying to advocate for him. And, it sounds crazy that your kid is going into anaphylactic shock from stress or a meltdown or running around outside. So it took me advocating and finding other doctors. And along the way we found a functional medicine doctor that helped us navigate a lot of things along the way as well.
Mm-hmm. So getting back to you, what medication do you take to keep your body under control?
I take some natural antihistamines like DHIS, and I do take Claritin. I should be on a famotidine. I just need to do it for myself. I kind of get the back burner sometimes trying to navigate life with my kids and all the other stuff, but I take my low dose Naltrexone. I actually take a lower dose oral ketamine as both like pain and a nervous system response because my whole body is just like freak out mode. I do take Celebrex for inflammation, and I take baclofen for muscle spasms because I'm just a whole joy of medical fun over here.
And you were saying that you do everything you possibly can. What's your diet like? What can
Um,
you do?
my diet, I don't find that I really have a lot of issues with food per se. I know that if we're like a dye-free home, like preservative, my kids eat a very different lifestyle. They very well. I sometimes lack the self-control. So I'll splurge and eat things I know I shouldn't, and I will suffer. I can tell if I've eaten something that has a food dyes in it. I'll start to flare, my ears will get red, my cheeks get red. I just feel like garbage. I don't sleep well. But I have a pretty open diet. We just try to eat super straight across the board, protein, vegetables, simple sides, just because it's just easier. And up until the last year, we were gluten-free, dairy-free home as well. We just recently passed that for my son. So that has been implemented. And I do a lot of homemade pasta and homemade tortillas and things like that. So I eat a basic diet. I try to limit the bad, but I do dabble in it a little bit more than I should.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing. So, as a family, you were saying about your son not sleeping that well. Do you manage to get a good night's sleep?
I struggle with sleep. I never really did on my own account. Obviously, being a mom and having babies, you kind of just that's just a part of the show. But now that my kids are getting older and a little bit more stable, my sleep kind of, ebbs and flows if I'm in pain or if it's just some kind of insomnia that I'm experiencing that I don't really know why. My sleep kind of, it teeters on not great to okay. I I need to find a better balance. I'm just not really sure how yet.
It's tricky, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah. So, what would you say to other people who have started to go through what you're having to cope with? What would you say is the best way of dealing with everything?
For me personally, trusting my gut. If I would have trusted my gut in the beginning of this, when I knew something was wrong and something seemed off, it would have made a huge difference. I wouldn't have allowed, other voices in the back of my head or anybody's input affect the route I was taking and advocating. That I think is a big deal. And then utilizing social media, those Facebook groups out there, posting in those or reading all those comments, those groups are what connected me to the people that held my hand and helped guide me along this route. If it wasn't for them, I don't know where I'd be. I mean, yes, I had to do a lot of the advocating, but it took me finding other people that heard my crazy story to just message me and say, "Hey, your son sounds just like my son." And, from there, you start to build that community and you find out the doctors you shouldn't see and you should see. Because, truth be told, there's a lot of my cat, sorry. There's a lot of gaslighting in the medical community when it comes to these complex, rare, bizarre conditions. So finding that community and never stop advocating. Don't let just one doctor stop you from pushing till you find answers. And if you're not feeling that that is the answer that is right, then find another person willing to listen that'll help you fight for yourself if you don't think you can do it. I'm always trying to help others, just like others have helped me. I'm far from an expert, but I'm pretty good at researching now and, pushing my way through to help. And you just have to keep going. And it's not easy. And even with answers, sometimes you don't have a fix, but that information is very gratifying. It's validating. And sometimes validation is the key to just feeling sane at the end of the day.
And feeling as though you're not alone, that there are others
Exactly.
going through
Yeah,
the same journey. Exactly.
exactly.
Well, thank you very much for sharing your experience with us
Of
today.
course. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. It was very nice to meet you.
I'm Dr. Leonard Weinstock. The guy has been prescribing LDN since 2005, and I've seen wonders. And I keep on seeing them, especially in hard to diagnose conditions. They're not that hard to do, but once you know about mast cell activation syndrome, postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, and Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, you'll find that 17% of your friends or relatives have one or more of these conditions, and you can help them. We're making a documentary to wake up the medical community, to educate the population, but we need funding. So please fund whatever you can afford, no matter how little. www.mcasfund.com. That's mcasfund.com.
Any questions or comments you may have, please email me, Linda, Linda, at ldnrt.org. I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you for joining us today. We really appreciated your company. Until next time, stay safe and keep well.